Hi, my name's Phil Gardner and welcome to Fun with Boxes. Today I'm taking a look at a game that is riding high on the Board Game Geek hotness chart at the moment, and it's currently at number 2 at the time I filmed this episode. And that game is a rather beautiful looking Harmonies, a game where you create a miniature world in which your aim is for all the animals to live in perfect harmony with nature. A fantastic theme for a rather clever and wonderfully addictive game from designer Johan Benvenuto and from publishers Libellud. This is a deceptively simple game that you will be able to pick up and quickly learn, only to then realise as you play it just how deceptive it was. Yes, it's easy to learn, but you will have to be really careful and thoughtful on how you place and build your landscapes on your turn to ensure you have built the perfect environment for the creatures you are trying to attract to live in your world. It's all quite straightforward in principle. You pick up tokens on your turn and place them on your board to create landscapes and choose the animals that you think will best fit in your world and then combine them all together to score as many points as possible. That is the game in a nutshell. But oh my, a few minutes into the game and you suddenly realise it is not as simple as it first looked, and now you are stuck with some landscape tokens that your creatures are not really fussed on. Just how are you going to manipulate and plan going forward to change the landscape where you can, or look for different animals more suited to your habitats to keep them all happy? Oh, this is so crafty. But before we delve in a bit deeper and get lost in building our own little world, let's take a Fun with Boxes look at what you get in a game of Harmonies. In Harmonies, you will be building landscapes by collecting and placing coloured tokens to create unique habitats for your animals. But you need to carefully choose your landscapes so that you have as many creatures as you can to settle there, if you want to be able to score the most points at the end of the game and win. Let's go through how to set up the game, which is, much like the game itself, nice and straightforward. Pop the central board onto the table this side up. If you notice, it has an arrow that you can use to point to whoever will be the first player. This side has spaces to place 5 groups of token. On the other side of the board is the side used to play the game solo, and this has 3 spaces for tokens instead of 5. Put all the lovely coloured tokens into the included bag and make sure they're all mixed up well. And then draw out 3 tokens and place them onto each of the 5 empty spaces, like this. Next, shuffle the 32 animal cards and place 5 cards face up near the board and put the remaining cards onto the table to form an animal deck face down. There are also nature spirit cards that you can also include in the game, but it's recommended that you play several games with just the animal cards, so for now leave the nature spirit cards in the box. Place all the animal cubes in a pile close by to the animal deck. And then give each player a personal board and a scoring reminder card, which is super handy. Players then all decide whether to use the A side of the personal board, the river side, or the B side of the board, the island side. And all players must play with the same side that is decided upon. For your first games, it's recommended to all play on the A side, the river side, until you are used to the game. The only differences between the 2 sides are on how the river tokens work and score in the game. Everything else is the same. Finally, choose a starting player and point the central board at them to remind everyone who it is. The first player will not change during the game, but for the game end, it will be important to know who was the starting player for that round. It's recommended that the first player would be the last person who saw a magnificent landscape, which sounds very appropriate to me for this game. And that's it. You're all set up and ready to play. Super straightforward and easy. And how to play Harmonies is also very straightforward. Starting with the first player and going clockwise around the table, each player takes a turn. and a turn is made up of the following actions. Take and place tokens, which is a mandatory action that you have to take during your turn, and also two optional actions. Take an animal card and place an animal cube, which can be taken at any point during your turn. At the end of your turn, you draw 3 tokens from the bag and refill the central board. You also refill the row of animal cards back to 5 cards if you took an animal card during your turn. And that's it. The next player takes their turn, and so on until the end of the game is triggered by one of 2 things. Either the bag is empty when you need to refill the central board, or if at the end of your turn there are 2 or less unoccupied spaces on your personal board. If necessary, you end the round ensuring everyone has had a turn, and the player with the most points wins. Okay, let's break all this down step by step. Take and place tokens, the mandatory action. You must take this action exactly once during your turn, taking 3 tokens from any one space on the central board and placing them all onto your board as you see fit, following certain rules. How to place a token. It can always be placed on an empty space. It can be placed on top of 1 or 2 previously placed tokens, but only to create trees, buildings or mountains. And it cannot be placed underneath a previously placed token. And finally, it cannot be placed on a space occupied by an animal cube, which we will cover a little later. This handy diagram in the rulebook shows you what landscapes you can build. Mountains. These can be a single token, or 2 stacked on top of each other, or 3 stacked on top of each other. A red token can be a single token, or if stacked on top of a grey mountain, another red token, or a brown wood, it becomes a red building. A brown wood can be a single token, or 2 stacked together. A tree can be a single green token, or stacked on top of 1 brown wood, or stacked on top of 2 brown wood tokens. Water and fields can only be placed as a single token. The reason you will be creating these sets and stacks of landscape tokens will become clear when we look at the next action, taking animal cards. Taking an animal card. This is an optional action that can be performed any time during your turn, but can only be performed once. You may take 1 card from the 5 face-up cards and place that card above your personal board. As indicated on your board, you may have at most 4 animal cards above your board. You then take as many animal cubes as there are spaces on the card and place 1 cube onto each of these spaces like this. Let's take a look at an animal card. Here are the spaces onto which you place animal cubes when you first take the card. And underneath each space is the point value. When an animal cube is placed onto your board, which we will discuss in just a moment, it will score the reveal points at the end of the game. So in this example, if we had placed 1 cube onto our board from this card, we would score 5 points at the end of the game. At the bottom of the card is the pattern of landscape you must create on your board to create a habitat for the animal shown. It also shows you where the animal cube must be placed once you have completed the habitat. This icon at the bottom right reminds you of what type of token colour the animal must be placed on. This is important because for your first few games, it's recommended that you do not choose multiple animal cards whose cubes need to be placed on the same colour. So, for your first few games, try to choose animal cards with different coloured strips. The final optional action you may take on your turn is to place 1 animal cube, and you can perform this action multiple times on your turn and at any time during your turn. In order to place an animal cube, you must follow these requirements. That the habitat pattern must match the card exactly, but can be orientated in any direction. The height of trees and mountains must exactly match the ones on the card. The token on which the animal cube is to be placed must be unoccupied. Buildings can have a bottom token of red, brown or grey, but no other types. And if you meet these requirements, you take the bottommost animal cube from the matching card and place it onto the indicated token on your personal board. If you've placed the last animal token from the card, then that card is considered complete, and you remove it from the top of your personal board and put it to one side. This no longer counts towards your 4-card limit. Once placed, the animal cube stays in place, even if the habitat changes in some way due to placement of other tokens in the future. End of the game. The game ends in one of two ways. The pouch is empty when you need to refill the central board, or at the end of a turn there are 2 or less unoccupied spaces on the player's personal board. When this happens, if necessary, end the current round so that all players have taken an equal number of turns. Then we tally up the points for all landscapes created and for the animals that were placed. The player with the highest points wins, or in the case of a tie, the player who placed the most animal cubes will win. If there's a further tie, then the players share the victory. The scoring is nice and straightforward. Here is how you would score your landscapes. Trees. A tree is formed by green tokens placed on 0, 1 or 2 brown tokens. You score 1 point for a single small green token tree, 3 points for a medium-sized tree, that's a green token on top of 1 brown token, and 7 points for a tall tree, that's a green token on top of 2 brown tokens. You get nothing for just brown tokens on your personal board. Mountains. A mountain is a stack of 1, 2 or 3 grey tokens, scoring you 1, 3 or 7 points dependent on the number of grey tokens in the stack. However, there is a special requirement. Mountains on their own do not score. They must be placed next to other mountains. So in this example, these 4 mountains will score for a total of 4 points as they are adjacent to each other. But this tall mountain isolated on its own will score nothing. Fields. Fields are formed by at least 2 adjacent yellow tokens, and they will score you 5 points in total. So long as you have at least 2 adjacent tokens, you will score those 5 points. That is, even if you have 4 adjacent yellow tokens, you still only score 5 points. So what you're looking to do here is to have isolated groups of 2 adjacent yellow tokens to score you 5 points per group, and you score nothing for a single yellow token. Buildings. Buildings are a little different. They must be a stack of 2 tokens with a red token at the top, and either a grey, red or brown token at the bottom. And in order for them to score, they must be surrounded by at least 3 different coloured token types, including another red. If this is the case, they will score 5 points. For example, this building only has 2 different colours surrounding it and will score nothing. But this building has at least 3 different colours surrounding it and scores 5 points. Rivers. Rivers score differently depending on which side of the personal board you use, the A side or the B side. The A side is called the river side, and you will be looking to form a consecutive string of blue tokens. The longer the string, the more points you will score, as you will see by this diagram. You count the number of tokens from one end to the other via the shortest path, including both ends, and you only count your longest river. As you will see, if your river is 4 tokens long, you will score 8 points. If it's 6 tokens long, you will score 15 points. And for every blue token above 6, you get an additional 4 points. The B side is called the island side, and on this side you will be using blue tokens to separate spaces from each other, forming islands, and you will score 5 points for each island you have created using your blue tokens. Here is the example in the rulebook. Here we have created 1, 2, 3, 4 islands by using the blue tokens to separate the board, and will score 20 points. One thing to bear in mind is that on this side you start with one huge island, which is the board itself. So this will score you 5 points even if you do not manage to separate any parts of your board. Scoring the animal cards. Now you look at each of your animal cards, those above your board and any you have completed and placed to one side. You will score the number of points in the topmost space without an animal cube. Here is an example. These 4 cards here were the ones I was working on during the game, and this one will score me 10 points, this one 4 points, this one 10 points, and this one will not score anything because all the animal cubes are still on it. Underneath is the card I completed during the game. This will score me the full 12 points. And the game comes with a handy scoring pad for you to use, and the rulebook includes some nice scoring examples too. That's how to play the basic version of the game, but the game comes with nature spirit cards that you can add to the basic game to play a richer game experience. These cards work in a similar way to the animal cards, but have a single nature cube on them that you place onto your personal board once you have met its habitat conditions. To use these cards, during setup, shuffle up the deck of 10 nature spirits cards and deal out 2 to each player. Each player then chooses one to keep and discards the other. They play the card they chose to keep above their personal board and place a white nature's cube onto the card. This card counts towards the 4-card limit. As soon as a card is completed during the game, you place the white cube as you would with animal cards and place the nature spirit card to one side. This will now give you extra scoring at the end of the game, and the cards show you how to score them. For example, if you completed this card, at the end of the game you will score all your mountains regardless of whether they are adjacent to each other or not. You score everything as you would in the normal game. You score for your landscapes and then your animal cards, but then you also now score your nature spirit card, which will score differently to the animal cards. In this case, scoring the mountains completely differently. You even score mountains that are not adjacent to other mountains. So this card, if you have completed it by the end of the game, will score 3 points for each single mountain, 3 points for each 2-height mountain, and 1 point for each 3-height mountain. Finally, the game comes with a simple solo mode for you to try, which I've not played yet, but I'm sure will be good fun. Well, there you have it, Harmonies, a terrific puzzle-like game with a lovely theme and even lovelier components. Even the box itself is nice. I just love the way they have used the box as an insert without the need to use plastic. And I love this little lid inside. It keeps all your cards nice and safe. The tokens you use to build up your landscapes are very nice and have icons on them to help with identifying the colours. I did struggle a little between the grey and green tokens at first until I got used to spotting their icons, so I really appreciated this. The game plays in around 30 minutes for 1 to 4 players and is very easy to understand and play, and I must admit I found it really addictive. As soon as we finished our first play, I just wanted to play it again and again, which is exactly what we did. A great little puzzle of a game, and one that I can fully understand why it's currently on the Board Game Geek hotness list. I'm so glad that we stumbled upon this game at our local friendly game store, Rules of Play, in Cardiff this week, and that my wife spotted it on the shelf. It looked like a game we would love, and it certainly delivered on that. 2 Fun with Boxes thumbs up for this one. A great abstract puzzle of a game with a lovely theme and production. Well, thanks as always for watching. Please click the old like button if you enjoyed this video, and also please do subscribe if you've not done so already. This will really help the channel. In the meantime, please take care and bye for now.